This place feels like home now, so I expect good service when I arrive. Surprisingly, when I returned home, my estranged mother-in-law was there, making a shocking statement. Her words left me speechless with surprise. I had just returned from a trip to Florida for my sister's wedding, having been away for 5 nights and 6 days. It turned out that during my absence, my mother-in-law had moved into our house, a move orchestrated by her son, my husband. I confronted my husband, seeking an explanation, but his response was completely unexpected. My name is Samantha, a 31-year-old who works in sales. I focused on my studies and secured a job at a leading insurance company right after graduation. Many people see me as a dedicated career woman, and indeed, I am passionate about my work, striving for excellence every day. Despite my professional success, my love life was non-existent until a significant change occurred. On a particularly busy day filled with client meetings, I was running late to finalize a contract with a client. In my haste, I grabbed the documents and dashed out of the office, hoping not to be late. Suddenly, I heard someone shouting my name. It was Brian from the administrative department of my office. We didn't talk much, usually just exchanging greetings. Breathlessly, Brian caught up to me and handed me some documents. "What's this?" I asked, puzzled. It turned out I had grabbed the wrong documents in my rush, and Brian, noticing the mistake, had hurried to give me the correct ones. I was bewildered, realizing my error and thankful for his timely intervention. "Thank you, Brian. Without your help, I would have jeopardized my client's trust," I gratefully expressed. I was embarrassed by my mistake, but Brian simply offered a reassuring smile, pleased to have been of assistance. His kindness in that moment marked the beginning of a change in my life. That day, I managed to seal the deal with the client, thanks to the unexpected help. This event brought Brian and me closer. We began talking more, sharing meals, and eventually started dating. He was 4 years my senior, always calm and full of positivity. After dating for 3 years, we decided it was time to get married, looking forward to a joyful life together. However, not long after the wedding, I encountered a challenge with my mother-in-law. Since my father-in-law's passing 6 years prior, she had been living by herself in a house nearby, frequently visiting us to request money. "Samantha, you're doing well for yourself, aren't you? How about sharing some of that as pocket money?" she'd say with a smirk. Before marrying, I saw her as a quiet and pleasant person, but her true nature emerged after the wedding. Despite my repeated refusals, she persisted in asking for money, which started to irritate me. She was quite the spender, quickly using any money she got. What's more, she even reached out to my sister for money, which crossed a line for me. Feeling the need to address this, I approached Brian. "Can you ask your mom to stop asking for money? She's even calling my sister now. You said it wouldn't be a problem, but it's becoming unbearable. Can you please talk to her?" However, Brian's response was non-committal, and he never really addressed the issue with his mother. After marrying him, I realized Brian was somewhat of a mama's boy, often seeing me as the problem whenever I voiced concerns about his mother. No matter how often I brought it up, Brian would dismiss it, saying, "That's just how mom is. You don't have to give her money, just ignore her." He suggested I should just tolerate her behavior, but he never confronted his mother about her actions. Moreover, my mother-in-law frequently criticized my household management, adding to my frustration. As she aged and her health began to decline, she started hinting at wanting to move in with us in our spacious home. She never explicitly stated her wish, so I avoided the topic. Then, one day, Brian mentioned, "Mom's feeling insecure about getting older and wants to live with us." When Brian suggested with a hopeful smile that his mom moving in with us was a good idea, I couldn't hide my dismay. "Living together? Absolutely not. I can't agree to that," I said with conviction. Brian seemed taken aback by my strong refusal and criticized me sharply. "Why are you being like this? Mom's just trying to be nice by suggesting she live with us," he argued. I couldn't help but question the benefit for me, given the strain of her continuous requests for money and relentless critiques of my cleaning. The mere idea of sharing our space with her full-time was mentally exhausting. Brian, puzzled, asked, "What do you mean, what's in it for me? Aren't we family? Did you marry me just for perks?" Our discussion quickly spiraled into a loud dispute, which dragged on without resolution and continued into the next day. Amid this tension, The excitement for my sister Amy's wedding in Florida was a welcome distraction. After our parents died in a car accident 4 years earlier, leaving me somewhat isolated from other family members, Amy became my closest kin. We've shared a bond since childhood, confiding in each other about things we never even told our parents. Hearing about her wedding filled me with joy, almost as if it were my own celebration. The wedding date was fixed well before Brian and I married, and I planned to go alone. About 6 days into our ongoing argument, Brian approached me with an unexpected apology. "I'm sorry, I overreacted. If you're not comfortable with Mom living with us, we won't insist," he conceded. His words brought me a sense of relief. "Thank you," I responded. "I'm sorry for being so adamant too." Brian then gently reminded me about Amy's wedding, expressing hope that I'd enjoy my time in Florida. His supportive words brightened my mood, and we reconciled, looking forward to the days before the wedding in a much happier state. The wedding day itself was as beautiful as one could imagine, set against the breathtaking backdrop of Florida's serene sea visible through expansive windows. Amy was radiant in her wedding gown, her joy infectious, bringing me to tears more than once. Getting to know her husband Anthony, who had shown himself to be both dependable and kind, reassured me that my sister was in good hands. After joyfully celebrating their wedding, I spent 5 nights and 6 days exploring before heading back to Philippines. As I walked through my front door, calling out, "I'm home," I was greeted not by the expected quiet of my house, but by my mother-in-law. "Welcome back, Samantha. You're here," she said with a smirk, making it clear she now considered my home hers and expected to be catered to. I was taken aback by her boldness. Rushing into the living room, I found Brian, my husband, relaxing on the couch. Confused and upset, I asked him about his mother's unexpected presence, only to learn he had decided we would all live together without consulting me. Brian's relaxed admission and justification for his deception were infuriating. He argued it was an opportunity for me to show family loyalty, despite the fact that my own parents were no longer with us. My mother-in-law then demanded I start showing my appreciation by giving her daily massages, and even suggested rearranging our home to suit her needs. Their entitled attitude was too much for me, and I couldn't help but raise my voice in protest. Brian's response was harsh, insisting we had no choice but to live together and dismissing my feelings with a callous remark about my lack of family. Feeling utterly disrespected and realizing my feelings for Brian had turned ice cold, I declared my intention to seek a divorce. Their laughter and mocking disbelief at my decision only confirmed my resolve. Despite their insults and claims that I would be unable to survive without them, I knew I had to leave. Their verbal abuse continued, but I remained silent, determined to start a new chapter away from their toxicity. Ignoring their taunts, I swiftly pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Brian's curiosity piqued as he questioned who I was calling, but my attention was focused on the call. "Hey, Amy," I greeted, the moment my sister answered. Yes, I had reached out to my sister, Amy. "Thanks for the warm wishes. The wedding was beautiful, and I'm back home now. I'm calling because I've made an important decision and needed to share it with someone who's always been there for me." As I spoke, Brian and my mother-in-law could only watch, unsure of what to expect. "I've decided to divorce Brian," I announced, my voice steady and clear. "The house feels too large for just one person, and I have no intention of staying here alone. It's time to resolve the matter of the house and land." My declaration was firm, leaving Brian and his mother speechless. Amy's response was supportive, offering her help with whatever I needed next. After thanking her and ending the call, Brian's frustration erupted. "How can you make these decisions alone? You're planning to deal with the house and land by yourself." His disbelief was echoed by his mother, who reminded him that he was supposedly the legal owner. However, I corrected them with confidence. I am the legal owner of both the house and the land. Their shock was palpable, especially when confronted with the truth about the ownership. Brian's mother, incredulous, pressed him for answers, but he remained silent. Facing Brian, I calmly asked why he had lied about owning the property. His confession was filled with insecurity and embarrassment. "I was upset that you earn more than me. My salary wasn't enough for the loan, so the property had to be in your name. It wounded my pride, so I lied to my mother to save face. Brian and I worked at the same company, but in different roles. I was in sales, and he was in administration. My efforts and team support had paid off, leading to a significantly higher income. Brian, on the other hand, struggled with his lower salary, which was surprising given our shared workplace. Despite others in clerical positions earning decently, Brian remained unmotivated, often dismissing the value of his role. This moment of honesty highlighted the deep issues in our relationship, not just financial disparities, but also Brian's inability to deal with them constructively. His deception and our differing values made it clear that parting ways was the right decision. At work, Brian was known for his laid-back approach, often relying on others to guide him through his tasks. While he could easily charm his way through social situations, making him somewhat likable among his colleagues, it was evident that he wasn't the most valued team member. His lack of enthusiasm for his clerical role was clear, yet he showed no interest in seeking opportunities for advancement or a better-paying job. Brian often justified his complacency by arguing that clerical positions offered stability and predictable salaries, unlike sales roles where income could fluctuate based on performance. This mindset led to a significant disparity in our financial contributions at home. I found myself bearing the brunt of our expenses, including the mortgage, because Brian was content with his stable but lower salary. His mother, under the impression that Brian was the provider of our home, often lauded him, unaware of the reality that I was the one managing our finances. When the truth came out about my plans to sell the house following our divorce, his mother panicked, questioning the validity of my statements, fearing for their future. I made it clear to her that Brian and I would no longer be connected, and they needed to sort out their arrangements. In a moment of desperation, Brian pleaded with me to reconsider the divorce, claiming he couldn't manage without me. Despite his sudden acknowledgement of his mistakes, my decision was firm. I couldn't overlook the issues that had driven us apart, and I needed space, so I decided to stay in a hotel while moving forward with the sale of the house. Brian and his mother's reaction to this decision was one of fear and uncertainty. I informed them they had some time to find a new place, but I wouldn't hesitate to take legal action if necessary. As I left, they attempted to make me stay, but my mind was made up. The divorce process was drawn out by Brian, but the evidence of their mistreatment towards me made my case straightforward. Despite my concerns that they wouldn't vacate the house, they eventually left without further conflict once the divorce was finalized, possibly driven by the realization that I was serious about taking legal steps if required. This resolution allowed me to close that chapter of my life and move on. After deciding to sell the property, I chose to demolish the house and clear the land. In our area, there was a higher demand for building custom homes rather than purchasing existing ones. This decision, although involving some costs for demolition, turned out to be more lucrative because selling just the land attracted more potential buyers. During this time, Brian and his mother, having nowhere else to go, moved into public housing. I found a new place to live, which was significantly farther from where I used to work. The distance, combined with my desire to avoid any further encounters with Brian, led me to resign from my job. I was ready for a fresh start, both personally and professionally. Fortunately, I found a new opportunity with a company owned by my sister's husband, Anthony. After discussing my situation with my sister, who had been a supportive confidant throughout my ordeal with Brian and his mother, Anthony offered me a position at his firm. This company, also in the insurance sector and competing in the same market as my previous employer, welcomed me warmly. In my new role, I thrived, driven by a newfound sense of freedom and determination. I was no longer weighed down by personal troubles, allowing me to dedicate myself fully to my work. My efforts paid off, leading to positive feedback from clients and a noticeable impact on the company's success. Anthony's acknowledgement of my contributions only fueled my motivation further. The news of my success and departure had a significant impact on my former company, highlighting the loss of a valuable team member. Meanwhile, without the support network I unknowingly provided, Brian struggled to maintain his facade of competence at work. His reliance on charm over actual performance became increasingly evident, leading to his isolation and eventual resignation. The job market proved challenging for him, and with his mother's lackadaisical approach to employment, their situation became dire. One day, his mother reached out to me, desperately seeking assistance. Despite our history and the difficulties they had caused, she pleaded for my help, a stark reminder of the complex web of personal and professional lives we navigate. When Brian's mother called me, her voice trembling with desperation, she painted a grim picture of their life. She lamented over their hardships, with Brian being constantly on edge and taking his frustrations out on her. She begged me to either take him back or help them financially, her plea laced with what seemed like rehearsed despair, aiming to pull at my heartstrings. My response was as icy as the resolve that had fortified me over the past 2 years. I refused to offer any aid or to rekindle any relationship with Brian. "We were once family. Can't you spare a thought for an old woman in distress?" she implored, but my decision was firm. No reconciliation, no financial support, and no further communication. I ended the call with a finality that echoed the closure I had sought for so long, promptly blocking her number as I had done with Brian's. A year has unfolded since that decisive moment, and life at Anthony's company has been fulfilling. Romance isn't on my radar. I'm content with the independence and peace I've found. My bond with my sister remains a source of joy, especially with the anticipation of becoming an aunt. Life's simple pleasures and the support of loved ones have filled the spaces left by past turmoil. However, life has a way of bringing the past to your doorstep, often when you least expect it. During a work-related visit to the neighborhood I once shared with Brian, I stumbled upon a figure that seemed a shadow of the man I once knew. Dressed in tattered clothes, with unkempt hair and a beard, he was collecting cans beneath a bridge. The recognition hit me with a jolt. It was Brian. The sight of him, so diminished and struggling, halted me in my tracks. Rumors of his unsuccessful job search had reached me through former colleagues. His insistence on sticking to clerical work despite evident talents for more engaging roles had seemingly led him to this low point. In our happier days, I had encouraged him to explore careers that would better suit his outgoing nature and interpersonal skills. It was a sorrowful realization that my advice had gone unheeded, a reminder of the disconnect that had grown between us even before our separation. Despite the stirrings of empathy, I reminded myself of the reality that we were now strangers, each walking our path shaped by the decisions we made. Brian's current plight, though unfortunate, was a consequence of his own choices. It wasn't my place to intervene or offer solace. With a heavy heart yet a clear conscience, I turned away and continued on my path, leaving the past behind me once more.